All right, I think there we go. I think it is started.
All right, Amber, did you want to jump in at all?
Nope, I'm good so far.
So would, like I said, people prefer to see us do an overview first, or do people have questions and you want to jump right in?
Well, I guess also while we have most of the people on, I know a lot of you, if you have Tyler or Vanguard, you needed to send an updated assessment summary. So that's something that, you want to make sure if you're one of those counties that you've got that in. Also, we ran into this, I think it was Davison County. I'm not sure if you're on here or not, but the assessment summary that they initially had submitted didn't have any of their exempt properties listed. So when they had some sales happen that were exempt properties, there wasn't a property that was able to be tied to those. So if you have, parcels for your exempt properties, you'll want to make sure those are also included in the assessment summary. So you may need to resend something depending on what you sent us originally.
So yeah, to follow up on that, Amber, we have had so far 10 counties resubmit their assessment summaries, and we have processed 9 of them. You'll be getting emails right after this. We just ran your update. So if there's anyone here from Grant County, you're going to be the poster child because we just ran the update and Grant was the first one I remember. The assessment summary was to refresh the value that shows in the source column in the application. I'm logged in as a super user.
Dave, just a second. Hey, Leah, can you see his screen yet or not? You can take yourself off mute if you need to. Okay, we're good.
So that was an update. We had, like Amber said, a number of Tyler and Vanguard counties that needed to send us an updated file. So we're showing the full and true here. We had some files that were coming in that had the equalized value, and so that was off. Let me read off the list to you of who we updated. Sorry, someone's calling my office phone. We updated Grant, I can tell you that. Sorry, I'm just scrolling. Okay, so process so far are Grant, Marshall, Perkins, Davison, Dewey, Haken, Lincoln, Yankton, and Ziebach. Anyone else who has submitted, we will be processing pretty much daily from this point through the rest of the resubmissions. So if anyone has updated assessment summary files they need to send in, please do. We'll run the files, run the update on the app, and then you'll notice your values will no longer be equalized. They will be full and true. So just to go off what Amber was talking about. So if any of you notice that you have differences in that source value column, that's what that would be related to. The other thing I want to cover is what counties are still pending register of deed sales. We have right now 10 in total. 3 we are working with directly to help them with their files conversion because they are either converting systems or have some legacy data challenges. That would be Clay, Todd, Tripp, and also we're assisting Roberts. We are testing Ziebach right now. Minor and Lawrence and Custer, we're waiting for backlog files, as well as Brown. We are testing Fall River as well. So if you heard any of your counties mentioned on there, their register of deed files are still coming together. We have pretty much, determined that we want all of them to be in by the end of next week because we really need to get everyone going here. So the department's working with each one of those register of deeds directly. If you have any special circumstances come up, you'll want to reach out to us and we can see what we can get done. So I wanted to cover those 2 items. I can, like I said, give a general overview of the application. We can have people ask specific questions. We can look in production at actual data. I can bring up test data, whatever people would like to do.
Don't all speak at once. This is your time to ask questions. If you've been in there trying to get sales loaded, if there's something that doesn't seem right, or you just have questions, we want you to
Okay.
ask those now.
We have one
So-
coming through in chat. So we're going to look. It is from Desiree from Brule County. She is saying, I uploaded my information and I'm not seeing anything like submit or anything like that. Okay, so let me log in. Ashley. So I'm in on the state side, so I can see both sides of the data at the moment. So you'll probably see some screens that you're not used to looking at. So you have 310 that have been staged. So the situation right now, it looks like with your sales in Brule County is that you have register of deed only sales. So if you're uploading a file and nothing is showing, it would appear there's a problem with your file. So in that case, you'd want to send it into the help desk and have us take a look at it and make sure the file is correct. The only reason I would anticipate, and I'm just going to go through, yeah, it doesn't look like we've had anything connect. So yeah, please send your file in. That would mean that there's probably a formatting issue in the file. Chances are it has to do with your sequence number. You can always open the file, and if you see a dash in the sequence number, you'll want to make sure to remove that and talk with your vendor as well. So something I should mention, when you go through the upload process, the system is trying to do two different things. First off, it's trying to match the file you uploaded sequence by sequence. So it's essentially going through and trying to find, in 2023 sale 119. The next thing it does is it looks out in the property database that the state has and says, is there a parcel that matches this record? And so it walks through those two steps. A sale will not be considered validated until both of those items are done. So some of you might find when you look at a sale, your validation information is showing, but there's no property linked. In that case, you're going to want to go and link a property manually, which you can do by just selecting add property and searching for it through the database. Looks like I have another question coming in. When you upload a file to the portal, do you get any
No.
type of message?
That was just me asking Desi when she uploaded if she got anything.
So, but that's important. I'll note something here. Sorry, let me actually click yes here. The uploader limits you to one upload at a time. So if I go in and say I want to upload a DOE file and then browse and hit upload, until it's done processing that file, it will not let me upload another DOE file. So if you're ever curious, did your file go in or not? The way I always do it is just look and see, can I upload another one? It usually takes about, 3 to 5 minutes, depending on where you are in the window for your file to get uploaded. Brandy, you are from which county? Can you help me out?
Dewey.
Dewey. Did I list you off on my list? Let's see. Just pulling up your. So if we look at a sale, I'm seeing the source data align on that first one. We can look at the next one. That one looks good. They appear to be updated. I would expect them to match. what you have uploaded. So to orient everyone to the screen, you're looking at the same screen you see with the state's version. The state has a third column, which is the final value. So the correction was that we had many people showing their full and true value here, but we were seeing a reduced value here because it was the equalized value. So that correction, if you're seeing sales that don't match, that could mean something else, like here's one. At the time we received the file, that was the value that we were given. So it's not abnormal to have some value discrepancies. It shouldn't be that the bulk of the sales should align, but there's always times where there's an adjustment to a sale or something else that you're aware of that we're not privy to.
Somebody's driving.
It sounds like that was Brandy trying to come off mute, but it's all staticky for some reason. Okay, another good question I see here from Tara. And I want to go over this one so we can talk about this. She is saying, I have one sequence that the rod only listed as skipped. I cannot do anything with that one. There's no parcel information. How do we get that one out of there? And so something that's important to note is the state will allow you to leave sales that are non-existent like that in your list. They don't have to be validated. Is that correct, Amber? Is that the operating assumption?
Yeah, so if there's just a skipped number or a duplicate, you wouldn't attach anything to that. So in the old way we used to do it, you just would never upload a sale for that. It's the same concept. You just ignore that blank sequence number. If the ROD would take that skip number out of their file before they send it, it wouldn't even go into the system. Does it say skip, Tara, or do you know the sequence number so we can look at it?
What county? Union County, right? Let me look.
But do you know the sequence number, Tara, though, so we can just see what it looks like on our side?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if you want to let your register of deeds know if they have a skipped sale or skipped number like that, they can just delete that line from the spreadsheet before. They don't need to actually put the sequence number and say skip.
But the county does not have to worry about trying to verify this. It can't just sit as an incomplete.
Yeah,
it would
just sit there.
It would just sit behind as a record. And when we move to the next year, it'll just be left behind as an abandoned record. But we anticipate there'll be a few more like that this year.
Yeah, some offices, they leave the sequence number in the spreadsheet and there's just no data with it, and some remove it. So I'm sure there's going to be more counties with that same situation.
So here's a great example where Union County is. They have validated their sales and released them. So they've gone through and completed the sales information and then pushed it out to the state. So it looks like, in the case of Union County, we still have reduced values. So when you send your updated assessment summary in, Tara, we will update, and these values will be reflected now of the full and true. So that's why it's important, even if you've completed your sales validation, to make sure that assessment summary report is rerun and sent in, because that's part of the comparison of how the data is looked at now. I'm happy to take other questions, go over other things. We'll log into states.
Kathy had a question in Grant County about something with a Canadian zip code.
Oh, here we go. Do you have an example, Kathy? Do you have a sequence number for it? I'll give Kathy a second. Oh, it was on the ROD file. Okay, we can take a note and look at it. It shouldn't matter if it has a foreign address as long as they're following the convention. I will take a note on it though. We can look at it. I'm gonna log in here as one of you. I forget. There it is. So when you log in, it looks more like this. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I have some sales in Brule. So you see information like this when you log in. You basically see the list of unverified sales. And what I was saying before is if you have a record like that skipped record, it can just stay here in the unverified list. It's not a real sale. It doesn't need to be verified. So you can just move past it. Denise has asked, I released my sales to the state. How do I get one back if I need to change information? Amber responded, email and they'll return it to you. Yep, or sorry, Jeff has now responded, it has been returned. So there are two things the state can do. They can return all your sales if you need to correct things, or they can return one sale at a time. So as both Amber and Jeff indicated, if you have something come up where you need sales back once you've released them, you can just request it from the person you're working with at the state, and they'll be able to do that. Why don't I walk through what happens when you have sales that may not be updated? So let's say it's a split and you load your file, it ends up giving you information, but you need to attach a property. So in the case of this, I'm actually going to manually validate the sale. So if let's imagine in a world where you have no files to upload and you're just left to have to deal with this in the application. The first step would always be to, we'll look for oil in the name, search for the property. So I'm going to look for the property, see if I find anyone with oil in the name. Yep, Vets Oil Co. So I can say this is the property that was sold. Once I do that, I'll associate a property. We can see here that we have the information. We identified a bug yesterday that when we're adding properties, we're not getting an update on this field. So that should be corrected early next week. But essentially what we've done is added this property in, and we have two things that we need to do. We need to determine if the sale should be rejected and what the classification is for the property or the sale in question. I can do that by hitting the verify sale button. It's going to show me the basic information. If I want to reject it, I'll select a code. If I don't want to reject it, I'll leave it blank. I'll say that it was not a willing buyer and seller and that it was D plus D1. I can put any comment I want in. Hit verify. Now the sale is considered verified. So for a lot of you, you have an instance where you upload your DOE file and you get these pieces. So you have the reject code and a classification, but the property isn't linked. And most of the time that's new plat, split, one of those types of items. So in the case of that, you're going to want to go in here, link the property that the a sale originated from, and then you can go in and update the exclusion accordingly. Part of the reason why the final workflow was decided for splits and plats to attach to the source property is one of the goals in this is that because we have all these property IDs, the state will be able to hand back to counties that want it GIS layers that have all of your sales, so you can look at your sales in a map. So that's one of the side benefits of all this data coming together is that it can be looked at spatially as well. I see Kathy, you wrote back. Let me jump back over to production. We'll jump into your sales. 230209. Yep, we'll have to take a look at that one. I'm not seeing it in your list, so that certainly should be there. I will get back to you on that, Kathy. What other questions so far, or things that people would like me to review? Don, that could be the case. We may be validating zip codes against a known list. I'll have to look at the exact record and see what's going on, but we have that file, so I can certainly check it. It looks like Diane said, I sent our sales in October 6th, just wondering if they have come through. Amber, you responded that we have 407 sales showing. So let me go back and pull that. Diane Merchant, what county are you from, please? Just
Coddington.
Coddington, sorry. I know a lot of your names, I just can't always place the county. So right now you have 407 sales of 978 that have been validated for Coddington. So when you log in, most of you just see that list. I want to make sure I'm feeding you accurate information. I don't look on the local side that often. So yeah, when you log in, what you see here in that number of local verification means the Register of Deed has 293 sales that they've loaded for the year. The first number is how many the DOE has verified or considered ready to be sent off to the state if you want to. So in this case, I'm just showing you how you see it. This is actual production. You see that for Coddington, you have 407 sales that have been verified out of 978. So 45% or so. Maybe a little less than that. So an important thing to remember as well is when you have sales that are validated that you want to send off to the state, you can change your view to read verified. By default, it shows you unverified sales to start with. And you just hit that green release button and it will send those sales off to the state. So when you log in, like I said, by default, it shows you the unverified view. So this is a list of all the sales that still need to be processed. You can always change that to show verified sales, which in this case, I've released all of the ones that I had that were available. Or I could say, show me all the sales. And it's going to show you everything that's left. The idea is that you're kind of just working through this queue. So I would say just leave it on unverified and work through it. And whenever you're ready to release, go to your verifieds and hit the green release button. I would recommend releasing as soon as you're done with sales. So let's say, in the example of Coddington we were just looking at, if you're done with these 407 sales and you're happy with them, hit the release button and send them off to the state, because that allows the state to start their review more quickly as well. The sooner sales are released, the sooner they can be reviewed. It doesn't all have to be done at once. That's obviously personal preference for you all. From doing this in multiple states, we find that people prefer it if they can validate and release the sales throughout the year. It's just one less thing to deal with as the fall rolls around, which is traditionally the busiest season for all of us in the tax business.
Are you still in Coddington?
Non-income tax business.
Can you show them? So in Coddington, if you go to like 230561, there's a sale that is missing a property ID, just so they realize if there's some sitting there like that, you got to attach a property before you can verify, just in case somebody hasn't had to do that yet.
Yep. So yeah, what Amber is saying is, and let me show you a way to find these. If a sale has a classification code on it and no state parcel ID, like right here, this 561, That's a great example of one that is Diane's file uploaded. It validated the information in the sale, but there was no property tied to it. So in this case, Diane, this sale is not verified because only one of the two steps happened. 95% of the time it's because it's a split or a new plat, and the assessment summary that we were given didn't contain that record yet because that record hadn't hit the tax roll. So what you would do in this case is attach it to whatever the property it originated from is, and then it would be considered a verified sale. So many of you might run into that situation where you're seeing your reject code and a classification tied to it, but it's not showing up on the verified list. And so the easiest way to look for that is if there's a class code and there's no PID. So here are a few more.
So Tara had more of a technological question. That might be something for next year, because if you go back to the verify a sale, I want to show them how the codes don't, they don't come across yet, but I think we're hoping next year everybody will have the reject codes.
Yeah, so the way your reports have traditionally worked, and we were trying to not rock the boat too much, because as you probably have heard from the auditors and know from your own work through the e-file, we rocked the boat pretty hard with numbering and funds and all that stuff. So we tried to keep the reports somewhat consistent with what they've been since you guys had been already working in an application loading files. And the reject code gets carried in a comments field. So for many of you, we get the code, but it's intermingled with other text. So let me look for one. And I'm not by any means calling out Connington. This is almost universal throughout the data. Let me look for one that's rejected here. No consideration cemetery deed. So frequently we're not getting consistent responses for the code number that we're using to represent different rejects. So for next year, we're going to be adding on a specific field where the vendors will be giving us the exact reject code. So this would say here, no consideration rather than other. Because basically what other is saying is it's rejected, but it didn't match the list of known values.
Can you click into the verify and show them? Because we did add a split new plat reject code, Tara. So going forward, this should be built in.
So you can do a 16. So to build off what Tara's saying, we could also, for a split new plat, you could have them enter the parent parcel in the field, or we could add an additional parent parcel field and add a little bit of additional logic. But that's certainly something that we want to improve going into next year, is your ability to move through those sales more quickly. So that 100%, I think that's probably been the most, the largest issue that's popped up so far that we've found, is that those sales and their inability to get associated with a parcel. We talked through various solutions, and I think we feel like for now the solution we're using is the best for this year, but certainly as we move into next year, that's going to get changed.
Has anyone else had any other issues? Everybody loves it.
What county are you from? There's a comment that says my rod info still has not been uploaded. Any ETA?
Clay County.
That should be next week. We have to manually assemble your rod's records because of some issues they've had. So that is on the list. Happy to take more questions, or we can look through more items if people have questions on things. Comments. Do we have to wait for DOR for us to upload for the register of deeds? Do you have to wait for? Yes.
Yep.
So yes, correct. If your register of deeds is not uploaded yet, then you cannot, because we have to match your sales to theirs. Like I said, most of the counties that are in flux still, we're trying to close over the next week or so to get them in place.
Yeah, what's the issue with Custer ROD? Are they on the list of?
Yep. Custer ROD, let me give you the exact information. We have 3 files that had incorrect deed types and bad exemptions. November, December of 22 and February of 23. April, after adding a property and verifying, do you have to hit submit? You can. Submit will send the individual sale off. You can just go back to your summary screen that shows all sales and hit release. I should explain that. Let me see if I have a county here that has a good amount of sales. Sounds like someone's off mute.
Oh, if you heard that annoying noise in the background, that's just Nikki's phone ringing.
Okay.
I'll mute myself, sorry.
So here's an example of, I'm in a county. If I hit submit, this is just going to send off this record, this one record. You can individually release. It's just not really necessary. I mean, once this sale is verified, I don't really have to do anything except hit the release button. I wouldn't spend your time individually hitting submit. So for example, if we go to this top record, 105, and I hit submit, it no longer shows up in the list. It went off to the state. I can just as easily hit release and send them all together. Other questions? We have a few more of these sessions coming up, I believe. Amber, do you know when they are? I can look in my calendar. If not,
I think, is it next Wednesday? We have one on the 8th, November 8th.
Yep, let me pull my calendar. So we have one November 8th at 2 p.m. Central.
I thought there was one more. I'm looking.
I think we do the
Oh, the
30th of
30th.
November at 2 p.m. Central as well, because Thanksgiving is early this year.
Yeah, so hopefully if some of you haven't had the opportunity to get in and work stuff yet, like Leah, you don't have any ROD files, so you probably haven't even got to mess around in there. Hopefully as more of you get in there and get to working on things, you'll have more questions next time.
Yeah, so Lisa's asking, is November 8th not the same as today? No, I mean, it's really whatever questions people ask, Lisa. I mean, I don't plan on covering any new ground, but if people ask things we haven't covered yet, we certainly will try our best to do that. We'll record them as well, and we can put all these recordings up on the help site. And if there's anything that's really earth-shattering that we feel the whole group will know, I'm sure Amber or someone else from the state will be sending out a notification.
Dave, can you pull up a county, like, so Amy has a question about if we reject it. So within the sale, Amy, there's a questions tab, so we can ask you a question and you'll get a notification. And then you just answer it, and that's all housed within the sale. So
Yep.
you'll get notified if
Just
we send something back to you.
Yeah, and I know you were asking some questions this week, Amber, because I saw emails go by. So some counties may have already had this happen to them so far. Let me log in as a state user so I can just show you what this looks like. So if the state's reviewing your sales, and they want to ask a question, they can go in and they'll ask you a question and they'll release them to you. And you'll get an email that says you have questions, and essentially it's just a message board. You'll just have the ability to go in and respond to what they've asked. It might say attach something, in which case you could go to the attachments tab and attach it. But it's pretty straightforward as far as when questions are asked. It doesn't necessarily mean the sale was returned to you either. The state may just be asking you a question. It doesn't mean the sale's editable. You'll just have the ability to respond to the question.
Yeah, can you go to Hand County and just so someone can see
Production,
specifically?
Yeah.
Yep,
Sure.
and there's, I'll tell you a sequence number that.
Well, it'll say on the summary screen.
Well, I got one where she's answered back 230051.
Yep.
Yep.
You can always sort on questions.
Yep.
So essentially, Amber has been reviewing these sales, and she asked a question about the sale. You'll see it has the exclamation point. So if we go to it, why is the total not adding up? Very good answer. They sold an acre of land. So yeah, this is a typical, very very typical scenario where the state is just looking for some clarifying information. You can provide the answer to that. The reason why it's captured here is because next year, if you wanted to go back and look at a sale, or if there was ever a question about what happened with the sale, you have the communication tied to it. So you don't have to go looking through your email. You don't have to dig things out. It's meant so that information, including any attachments, stay with this sale going forward. And as many of you know from working in e-file, you can always go back to prior years once we start using the system for a couple of years. I think there was another question I saw. Does the Brookings ROD have files uploaded? Yep, they do. Like I said, when you log in, you can always know how many ROD files are uploaded by that indicator. So we see there are 964 sales waiting to be validated. Oh, sorry, Jeff. I'm just looking further down the list. I saw you answer that question. Thank you. Will those notifications come to our email and not just through the portal? Yes, when the state asks the question. So that's a very good question from Tara. The state can start adding questions to many sales. And so let's say that Amber went through and she added 50 questions. You wouldn't get 50 separate emails. At one point, she hits a button that says, send the town an email and tell them I have questions about their sales. So at that point, what you want to do as the town user, or excuse me, county user, you have to remember I live in New England and we do things at the town level here. So sometimes they use that term interchangeably. You'll want to look, I don't have any sales here, but they would have an indicator saying they had questions on them. So they would have, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many questions were on the record. So what you want to do is click on that parcel, answer, or click on the record, answer the question, and then send it back. The important thing to note is if they ask you 50 questions, you're not going to get 50 emails. You're going to get one email when they've released the questions out to you. And that was in an effort to not have people bombarded with emails to the point where you don't pay attention anymore when an email comes through. So if you got 50 emails over each question, you'd say, I'm getting sick of this. I can't deal with 50 separate emails. So just be mindful that an email can be more than one sale open in the, for discussion. Other questions?
Can you see if Custer has an updated assessment summary? Leah's asking.
Let me look. I don't think they were on the list that I read off. It might have been though. No, I have not seen an updated file. If you submitted it today, we probably are, we'll pull it down and process it. But I'm looking in the source file and I don't believe we've received anything yet.
How did you email it, Leah? Can you talk about the PY the prior year?
Prior year value where? On which screen?
Just Liz Main had a question, but Leah, if Renee updated it, you'll still need to pull that assessment summary and email it to the support email.
Where do you see a PY listed value? I just want to make sure.
Liz Main is asking, is the PY listed value the amount they paid? I was just saying, explain
No,
that's the
I don't-
prior year.
It's the prior year, but you shouldn't be. I thought we were going to disable it. I need to turn it off for now, because for many of you that PY value was a factored value, so it's not really applicable. So I'll have to take a note on that one. Other questions? And you can feel free to send questions into the help desk in between now and the 8th. It's not that these are the only opportunities, but we wanted to hold these sessions to give people an opportunity once they got into the software to, ask more pointed questions or about specific scenarios.
I know there's been some questions. If your assessment summary wasn't the correct one, you can still keep working your sales and
Yeah, 100%.
validating.
It's totally inconsequential to your workflow. You can validate release. After that, the sales will be updated at any point. Whenever we get your file, we process it, and then we have to run a specific query that tells the application to refresh your values. So basically, do whatever you feel like doing, as far as validating your sales, and know that update can get done no matter what the status of the sales are. Other questions?
Well, it sounds like everyone doesn't have any more questions, so we don't want to waste any more of your time, Dave, today.
All right. Well, like I said, if anyone has follow-ups, feel free to hit the help desk. I know people have, I'm sure, open help desk tickets in. We're working through them. We've levy season going on right now with the auditors as well, so we're pretty busy at the moment. Otherwise, thanks everyone for taking the time. If the Department of Revenue, you guys can provide me with the recording, we'll get it up in the help page for all of the people who wanted to spend their Friday afternoon doing something better than listening to me prattle on about sales. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.